Why is the dollar the world's most powerful currency? Since the mid-20th century, the United States dollar, known as the USD, has held an unmatched position as the world's dominant and most powerful currency, meaning it is the primary unit used in global trade, finance, and central bank reserves. The dollar's rise did not happen overnight. It was shaped by history, economics, and geopolitical power. After World War II devastated much of Europe and Asia, the United States emerged as the world's strongest economic power with vast industrial output, stable institutions, and large gold reserves. At the 1944 Bretton Woods Conference, leaders from 44 allied nations agreed to build a new international monetary system anchored to the US dollar, which was convertible to gold at the time. This historic agreement also established the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank, infrastructure still central to global finance today. Even after President Richard Nixon ended the dollar-to-gold convertibility in 1971, effectively transitioning the world to a fiat currency system, the dollar retained its dominant status. Its dominance is reinforced by several interconnected factors: the sheer size and stability of the U.S. economy, deep and liquid financial markets, widespread use in international trade, and its role as a safe haven currency in times of crisis. The United States economy is among the largest in the world, accounting for a significant share of global economic output and maintaining highly accessible capital markets that attract investors from around the globe. Today, nearly half of global foreign exchange reserves are held in US dollars by central banks, and a large portion of international trade, from commodities like oil to global debt markets, is invoiced and settled in dollars. This means governments, corporations, and financial institutions around the world need dollars simply to do business or stabilize their own currencies. In turbulent periods, investors and central banks often flock back to the dollar, viewing it as a reliable store of value when markets wobble, a phenomenon observed during events like the global financial crisis of 2008 and recent economic uncertainties. Another crucial element reinforcing dollar dominance is the petrodollar system, established in the 1970s, where major oil-exporting nations price and sell oil almost exclusively in US dollars. Because oil remains the world's most traded commodity, this arrangement creates persistent global demand for dollars. Nations must accumulate USD to pay for energy imports, and in turn often reinvest those dollars in US government bonds and assets, strengthening financial ties. The US dollar's influential role gives the United States what economists term an exorbitant privilege, the ability to borrow heavily at lower interest rates and finance its debt, because the world's demand for dollars supports sustained issuance of US Treasury securities. Central banks around the world still keep the largest share of their reserves in USD, making it difficult for rival currencies to displace it despite periodic discussions about de-dollarization. Even though other economic powers and currencies, like the euro or yuan, aspire to challenge the dollar's role, the global financial architecture, including major payment systems, networks like SWIFT, liquid bond markets, and deep investor trust, continues to make the US dollar the most widely used and powerful currency in the world. However, the story does not end with dominance alone. The true power of the US dollar lies not only in how widely it is used, but in how deeply it is embedded into the global system. Most people believe currencies compete like products. In reality, currencies compete like systems. And the dollar is not just a currency. It is the foundation layer of modern global finance. The international banking system runs on dollars. Global debt is issued in dollars. International trade contracts are written in dollars. Even countries that openly criticize US power still depend on the dollar to function. Because replacing a currency is not about politics. It is about trust, scale, and infrastructure. Trust is built over decades, not declarations. The dollar benefits from more than a century of institutional credibility. U.S. Treasury bonds are considered one of the safest assets on Earth. In times of crisis, money does not flee the dollar, it runs toward it. This creates a paradox. The more global instability increases, the stronger the dollar becomes. Wars, financial crashes, pandemics, and political uncertainty all push capital into dollar-denominated assets. This is why the dollar often rises even when the U.S. economy itself faces challenges. Another critical reason the dollar remains dominant is liquidity. Liquidity means the ability to buy or sell large amounts of assets without collapsing the market. No other currency offers liquidity on the scale of the U.S. dollar. The U.S. financial markets are deep, fast, and accessible. Trillions of dollars move through them daily. This allows governments, corporations, and investors to enter and exit positions with confidence. Without liquidity, a currency cannot lead, and no rival currency currently matches the dollar in this area. In recent years, the idea of de-dollarization has gained attention. Some countries have explored trade agreements in local currencies. Others have increased gold reserves or experimented with digital currencies. But there is a difference between discussion and execution. True de-dollarization would require a trusted alternative currency, deep financial markets, free capital movement, strong legal protections, and global acceptance. At present, no alternative meets all these conditions simultaneously. The euro lacks political unity. The Chinese yuan lacks full convertibility and transparency. Gold lacks flexibility and speed. Cryptocurrencies lack stability and universal trust. So while the dollar's share may gradually decline, its central role remains intact. Another often ignored factor is military and geopolitical power. Currency dominance does not exist in isolation. It is supported by trade routes, alliances, security agreements, and global influence. The United States maintains military presence across key regions of the world. This stabilizes trade flows, protects shipping lanes, and reinforces confidence in the dollar-based system. Historically, the world's reserve currency has always belonged to the dominant global power. From the Spanish silver dollar, to the British pound, to the US dollar. This pattern has repeated for centuries. Now, consider the psychological dimension. People do not trust currencies, they trust systems. The dollar represents predictability, rules, contracts, enforcement. In many parts of the world, local currencies collapse not because of economics, but because trust collapses. Inflation erodes confidence. Political instability destroys credibility. Capital controls scare investors. When trust disappears, people escape to the dollar. This is why in many developing nations, the dollar functions as a parallel currency. It is saved under mattresses, used in real estate, accepted in informal markets. Not because people love America, but because they distrust uncertainty. The dollar is also powerful because it is programmable at scale. Through interest rates, sanctions, access to financial networks, and control over dollar liquidity, the U.S. can influence global behavior without firing a single shot. This is modern power. Sanctions work because the dollar system is unavoidable. Cutting access to dollar clearing can freeze entire economies. This is why the dollar is not just money. It is leverage. But no system lasts forever. History teaches us that dominance slowly erodes before it collapses. The question is not whether the dollar will lose power, but how slowly and in what form. Digital currencies, central bank digital money, regional trade blocs, and technological decentralization are reshaping finance. Yet transitions take decades, not headlines. For now, the dollar remains the center of gravity. The world runs on it. Fears return to it. Debts depend on it. Understanding this reality is critical because the dollar's power affects inflation, interest rates, job markets, commodity prices, and even political stability in countries far from the United States. In the end, The dollar is powerful not because it is perfect, but because it is trusted more than the alternatives. To support and encourage our work, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.